Welcome everybody back to another episode of Never Ending Adventure Podcast. I'm going a little NPR today, a little quiet on my introduction, but as always, this is it's DJ Netty P.
Hello, DJ Netty P. This is DJ Russ T. I'm so excited to be here, and this is about the volume we're going to be talking about for this entire episode. So just strap in, tuck in, get a blanket, tuck in, strap in wherever you are with that blanket. And just be ready for a good time.
Good time. Just a good time. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time. We're talking about a great episode this week. I'm telling you, this one. I mean, dude, we're in season 5. We're in the heat of it. This is like as probably much crazy lore as you've digested in, like, possibly in the show. Maybe since we went into the multiverse and found Prismo, this might be the most canon lore heavy episode. We're talking about the Vault.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. I got to say, Ned, I feel like we've been really creeping up to this episode for a long time now. And a lot of our little, this is a spoiler drop here and there and whatever, have trickled into kind of this episode. This feels significant. As y'all know, this is my first time watching Adventure Time. And I immediately think back to with the Vault, as we learn in this episode, Finn has entered, or he is reincarnated constantly. A comet, a butterfly, a poop thing, maybe whatever that was, that pile of whatever, radioactive whatever from another universe, and Shoko, who is missing an arm, funny enough. But you kind of hinted at this reincarnation, or maybe you even mentioned that this was the case back in season 3, episode 7 of Still, when we found out that Finn he has his Astro Beast.
Yeah, his astral projection was calling on the Astral Beast. Yeah, was butterflies, and so it's like that was one of my theoretically speakings of this episode too.
Theoretically speaking,
because I think I have 3 of them as well.
Okay,
but one is that he definitely called on. My theoretically speaking is that he called on the Astral Beast, and the only one he could call on was butterflies because he had been a butterfly in the past life.
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree with you. I think we have a little bit of a situation, kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, not to spoil too much for you, but Avatar, the Avatar state, the Avatar is able to kind of tap into his past lives and get advice from them. And also he is kind of this is not the case for Adventure Time, but all the powers from his past lives kind of affect and kind of move forward with him to some degree. So in this episode, one, you have Shoko, who very much is interacting with Finn in the present state. No one else can see Shoko. And that reminds me so much of Avatar, which I thought was just a really fun, in my mind, being a huge Avatar nerd, that just felt so wonderful to see a little bit of parallels. But yes, the butterfly, same thing. It's got to be the case that, even that butterfly past life still affects him in the modern day, whatever reincarnated state he is currently in, which is Finn the Human. And it's cool, man. As I was diving into reincarnation and just the idea of it and whatnot, it reminds me of how my dad and my stepmom always call me their old soul, which I'm still not really sure whether that is a diss. Are they saying that I'm boring? I'm not really sure what they're getting at by referencing me as their old soul. And in fact, I've mentioned that I found another old soul in Alley. So I'm like, okay, so are we just the lamest couple of all time? What are y'all trying to say?
It's funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to go on rabbit holes on TikTok and on ChatGPT and on researching more about this whole past lives and reincarnation and the thoughts behind it. One of the random TikToks was oh yeah, you're on your last reincarnation if you and your partner choose not to have kids. It's an indicator that you're on your last reincarnation before whatever comes next. But actually, I did a baby bit of research that I found many different thoughts as it came up to more of a reincarnation mentality.
Right. Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism. Yeah. So many different religions touch on reincarnation. And it's, I also similarly wanted to do a little bit of research just to show respect to the belief of reincarnation and whatnot. Because it is so fascinating. Like I was saying with the old soul thing, I'm like, what if it is true or whatever, right? Like thinking back of a past relative or whoever I was in a past life had a very traditional or was very traditional in nature. And then you mix that traditionalism that is within me and my prior reincarnated spirit or whatever, plus the modernism of today. And then somehow that equates to who I am. I don't know. So of course, my brain was just going all over the place with this stuff.
Well, I'd heard one, interestingly enough, like kind of a thought around like a lot of this stems into what's considered like a soul consciousness, pretty much, that there is like kind of one soul consciousness in the universe. But yeah, the one I had was like non-dualism and Advaita Vedanta, which is the Hindu philosophy that the ultimate reality is Brahman, the unchanging infinite consciousness. All individual beings are seen as manifestations or illusions of a single consciousness. The other was a Buddhist anatta and rebirth, that Buddhism teaches there are no permanent selves, anattas. What we perceive as self is a collection of ever-changing phenomena, thoughts, feelings, actions. In a simpler way of putting that, one of the most recent kind of non-religious based thoughts I've heard recently is that if there is a soul consciousness per se in the universe, that the God, what is heaven, what is God mentality, that could technically be all the same people in an infinite loop of reincarnation.
Interesting.
Pretty much every person from the beginning, if reincarnation was the thing, you live the life and then you reincarnate as somebody else, but it doesn't have to be after your own life. Like if it's a non-timeline-based reincarnation, but if that happens infinitely, then it would just be the same soul reincarnating over and over and over again. So like, and then that's the whole, like what you call it, ego death, when you're like, oh, everybody is me and I am everybody else kind of mentality.
That's a really interesting perspective on reincarnation and whatnot. I mean, I know with Hinduism, a very similar, this is very basic level and probably not entirely true, but similar in the transmigration of souls in Hinduism and the transmigration of karma in Buddhism. Mm-hmm. And they're both kind of released at the end of the cycle, or like with Buddhism, when you reach a state of nirvana, or maybe it's nirvana is the state that you reach once you've ended the cycle of reincarnation. Yeah. I'm not sure. But regardless, it does make me wonder, like, from that perspective, like, when does Finn end the cycle of reincarnation? Is there an endpoint to, like, what's the end goal, or is he just forever in this? I know, thinking of like, and again, in different religions, you can go from an animal to a human and whatnot. So that's not exactly a new concept, but Finn going from a butterfly to poop or whatever that was to,
I've got a theory on that too. I'm
Shoko,
saving that one for later. Yeah.
To Shoko, to Finn, and Shoko's not a hero. Shoko is not this moral good figure. You see Shoko betray a good friend in this episode in Princess Bubblegum, whereas with Finn is, for the most part, I mean, he's certainly not morally perfect. I mean, obviously, we just had so many great episodes where he is incredibly flawed with Flame Princess and his relationship.
He's inherently
he's a hero. He's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Where he's trying to be a good guy. He's just going through puberty and whatnot. So maybe he's like slowly creeping up on, the final state or whatever. It's interesting too. There's so many different potential outcomes for Adventure Time characters in this show. Like, it's not just reincarnation, right? We have ghosts. We see ghosts all the time. NEA, which is Never Ending Adventure, 79, season 3, episode 24, Ghost Princess, where Ghost Princess is like, until I discover the cause of my death, my soul can't ascend to the 50th dead world. That's like a whole nother concept of dying. Like, in this one universe, you have so many different concepts of dying. And for Finn, reincarnation just happens to be true. That's kind of a cool concept, and I'm glad you remembered dead worlds and like ghosts and everything like that, because it does introduce kind of a multi-pronged approach to what Adventure Time is solidifying in the canon in terms of the afterlife, because we hear about the 50 dead worlds and that everybody's trying to ascend to this 50th dead world. What does that mean? They do a great explanation of it, and I'm not going to give any spoilers for it, but in the Distant Lands episodes,
which in theory, we could actually do that if we wanted to take a quick break from the show. It's 3 episodes that have some like canon lore to them, because I keep referencing it. And I don't know if we have to necessarily get to the end of the show, maybe with the PB and Marcy episode of that.
Let's do some research and see where it kind of fits in the timeline.
But the final episode of called Together Again does a really good explanation on how they are solidifying there are dead worlds and there is reincarnation. So like they're being very thoughtful and meticulous about it. They're not just like tossing out a bunch of concepts without not thinking about it.
I'm glad, because it's getting
now it's getting a little convoluted. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fascinating side point. Shoko knows that Shoko is going to be reincarnated, is another just little thing we need to touch at some point, because she goes, as she's dying, this would be pretty cool. I got a new arm. This would be pretty cool if I weren't about to hit my restart button or reset button, which that's crazy. How did she find out about that?
How does she know specifically?
I want to know why this better not be the Shoko episode, the only Shoko, the last time that we really get to dive into.
It kind of is, man.
That's not cool.
Like, I think we get references of it again, and like Finn tapping into like Shoko energy, but we don't get Shoko lore. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is that we don't have to understand all of Finn's past lives to understand Finn. Even though, again, I think she gets my lovely of the episode for sure.
Give me some sugar, baby.
Because she's such a good character. Another thing I realized about Shoko and Finn in general, it's like kind of the things that Finn's drawn to per se, and a little bit of like destiny per se. One, she's missing an arm. That comes up later, and you'll see very obviously it's kind of a Finn destiny thing. You probably have this spoiled by all Instagram and everything.
Yeah,
like
we
that.
talked about it, especially when Fiona and Cake, and then when we went back in time or to Farm World and all that.
Yeah,
there's been many references to it.
And another really interesting part of like Shoko's character in the show is exactly what you just brought up, is the fact that she is not really good, but she's like attracted to the good, but she's just doing it for the coin, and then has this moment when she gets the arm and she's like, I still got to come through and steal this amulet. I'm not going to like
she's trying to survive. She's just trying to live. She was freaking left at a dojo by her parents, bro.
Exactly. And again, we'll get to it more, common theme, having shitty parents. Common thing that connects her with Finn. Again, Finn never doesn't know that his parents he doesn't know anything about his parents. So he hasn't been affected the same way Shoko's been affected about having neglectful parents. That's going to be another very important like personality growth with Finn. But another thing, I love the fact that she kind of gives off Marceline vibes as well. And so I was like, maybe that's why Finn is so drawn to Marceline, is it's kind of like this conflict of like, am I good? Am I bad? And it's, again, something innate in Finn's heart and his destiny, that he's drawn to somebody that he's really good friends with, that also is kind of going between that thought and mentality all the time, She does kind of give Marceline vibes.
Yeah. My kind of takeaway from a lot of this was just being glad and thankful for Finn's sake that like this part of him, the Shoko thing that was within his vault, has found peace. And they were able to deliver the amulet at the end of the day to Princess Bubblegum. But yeah, I agree. Shoko is a very fascinating character, not fully a hero, as I mentioned earlier, trying to survive. Really, all of it is just context that we either have to put together with this episode, or that we're kind of hinted at, or we could say, okay, obviously her parents left her at a dojo. She learned to fight there, I guess, and then went on to do work for hire type things like she's doing in this episode with the Bath Boy Gang in order to survive and pay for food or steal whatever it was. She's a little bit of a tragic character and truly has a tragic death right in front of her white tiger friend, which is super sad. That poor tiger just watches her fall into a pit of radioactive acid and die right in front of her eyes. That's terrible. But it's interesting. I think this is a great episode, and Shoko at the beginning of this episode is showing herself as this mutated amorphous ghost form, as that's really the form that we've seen all throughout.
I don't even know
show.
if it's amorphous, but it's not ghost-like. I think we've seen the ghost and we're like, that's just what ghosts look like. But that is actually like what her body like turned into in the radioactive like pit.
It is. I kind of split it up in my mind into like, this is her radioactive form, or like her slug form, I think is what I ended up calling it in my mind or my notes. And then the amorphous ghost form is what we've seen from, what episode was that?
The Creeps,
Or Creeps episode, where she comes out of the bookshelf or whatever it was to terrify Finn for the first time. That's kind of how I justified it in my mind. I think, as we'll talk about, it's not really a ghost form at all. It's just how she's appearing to Finn. But she died right at the base of this treehouse, which is so great. So she's just appearing in the kitchen. A very fun, like, oh, isn't this crazy? Like, Finn is back where his past self died. Kind of incredible coincidence, if you will.
Well, what's another really cool coincidence per se is that in the Creeps, they're in the mansion, and you see that pretty much the mansion is the Bath Boy gang's mansion. So when Shoko goes to it's very, very reminiscent of it. And also you can see the parallel. It's a different universe. So it's not quite the equivalent of the same thing, but the Destiny gang, they have that big mansion on the top of a hill that looks very similar to this. Again, that's one of the great little tie-ins between a multi-dimensional and in, past and present mentality here. But same thing, like Shoko is having to work and is offering to work for coin, which is exactly kind of what Destiny gang offered to Finn and Farm World.
And they're giving
just
the
cool
same
parallels.
vibe.
Yeah,
they're
vibe.
Totally giving the same vibe. Very punchable. Very, we're too cool for you. It's kind of the worst. I have to say, the Bathboy Gang leader is my most punchable character of this episode. I think is what I'll say. I think because I hate him, but I kind of want to be him. He's just like vibing in a giant clam bath. He's got cucumbers on his eyes. But as he's discussing, what the job is with Shoko, he goes like, all right, like, let me eat this cucumber. And he does it in such a weird, sensual way that I cringe so hard on it.
It's like you want to be that chill and you want to be that chill of a character, but you don't want to end up as punchable as him either.
Right. And I also don't want to be like threatening people with death just to go get an amulet that I guess is magical. But of course, Princess Bubblegum would probably say otherwise. She would have some weird scientific explanation for how the amulet works and how it brings the Gumball Guardians to life. I don't even know how she would explain that, but I'm sure she would say it's not magic, it's science.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of see it as maybe more of just like an act. Like she puts it in the gumball slot and pulls it right back out. So it could just be like an on and off switch. Yeah. But the other thing, and again, I think it's just why this episode, I don't even want to talk about the story because it's all just cool tie-ins, is that...
Let's talk about the story, dude. Come on.
The amulet itself, like you said, is it magic? Is it not magic? Like, we look at Princess Bubblegum. We see that in Simon and Marcy that there was the mother gum, and that's what kind of created Princess... Or we haven't gotten there yet. We'll get to Bonnie and Nettie soon. But that wasn't per se magic. Like Princess Bubblegum wasn't made by magic. She's got a river of radioactive sludge that she's just covering up under her kingdom. Why even build the kingdom on top of it?
Covering
unless
it up with
she
candy.
was using part of the radioactive, work to bring candy people to life. And again, another theoretically speaking of mine. I won't do the soundbite.
Yeah, you reached for it.
I reached for it. I was like, I won't do it. I won't do it. Too many of them.
I have this start in my notes too, because I'm like, she's covering this up with candy, which seems kind of ridiculous. But what is the purpose? Like, where is this river nowadays in modern time underneath? Like, there's no moat of radioactivity surrounding the Candy Kingdom. I think there's a river maybe, or even, I don't know. There's
not a moat around it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a river going through it, which we saw when we were looking at the Ne'er-do-well episode, and Finn was the Hug Wolf episode, and Finn is like waking up in the river, or like on the bank of the river or whatever in the city. But I'm like, where is this radioactive river? What happened to it? How did it affect the candy? Is, like you're saying, is it bringing Candies back to life, or part of it being used to bring Candies to life.
That's what I'm thinking too, because we do see there is going to be some lore not too far from now in season 6 about the lifeblood of the Candy people, essentially like what their water source is, kind of like humans' water source. But that wouldn't explain what brings Candy to life and what scientific, I don't know, formulas and potions that Princess Bubblegum is using to bring them to life. So I think it's a combination of this radioactive sludge, because we've seen radioactive sludge in Simon and Marcy be what zombifies people. And what do they call? I think they're called the crawlers or something like that. That has zombifying effects. And it goes back to episode 1 of the entire show, how she's able to bring those Candy people back to life, and they're zombified.
Speaking of episode 1, real fast tangent, young Mr. Cream Puff makes a cameo.
Makes a nice cameo. Again, they're tying it all together here.
The callback of all callbacks. Truly.
Absolutely.
Back to episode 1. But no, I do wonder, because historically speaking, civilizations were formed around rivers, around water sources. And that's what she's doing with, very strategically, I might add, with the Candy Kingdom. But for what purpose? This isn't a river. This is a radioactive river, which has who knows what properties, and clearly can kill people as soon as they jump in it or melt an entire arm of a Gumball Guardian. It's not exactly the smartest play, unless it is the smartest play. And Princess Bubblegum is incredibly resourceful, incredibly capable. We have the Bath Boy Gang, which is made up of a ton of people. And Princess Bubblegum goes, no, I'm good enough. I'm going to make my own damn civilization. And everybody around it is going to be my own creations. And then I'm going to become so powerful because of that. And she's still around, but the Bath Boy Gang, they're gone, you know?
Yeah.
They're
gone. We don't know if she's immortal, but yeah, Finn even mentions that he's like, whoa, BB, you're crazy old. It's like not cool to not tell me that. You're not 19 years old. So that's always funny. And she kind of knows. She just, again, I don't like she didn't tell Finn, and she's got a lot of secrets. And again, you're down the right path, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but you're hitting the thing with like how the Candy Kingdom was formed, why it was formed is actually all explained, and kind of like what happened with Princess Bubblegum. What is Princess Bubblegum is all explained in the final season of the show, actually.
Oh, really? Okay. So we got a while to go before we get into that stuff.
Yeah. So I can't, that's why I was like, I can't spoil too much. Yeah. Another 3 years until we get to that one.
Oh, man.
I can't spoil that too much, but you're going down the right road of like asking the right questions here, that there is a reason and there is a purpose, and nothing can be taken as coincidence per se.
Yeah. Well, you know, and as I was talking about with Shoko and this river and all, she dies, right? And of course, we have this ghost form that's reappearing to Finn. And as I'm thinking about Ghost Princess and how ghosts work in that world and how they work in how Finn works, essentially reincarnation, I don't know if this is a theory, but I would just go ahead and state that Shoko's ghost form may just be the manifestation of regret over the betrayal of Princess Bubblegum stealing her amulet, right? So after Finn returns the princess to Bubblegum for Shoko does appear in her normal form, kind of like regresses from the ghost form to the normal form, which Finn can see, but all Princess Bubblegum sees is the skeleton. And he's like, hey, yeah, that's me, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And when she finds peace, she goes back to the normal Shoko form. And so it's not that she's a ghost, it's that she's this internal manifestation of regret that lives inside of Finn himself.
Yeah. Well, the worm form is the form of betrayal, like what happened when she betrayed Princess Bubblegum. And once that's redeemed, she's able to kind of return and find peace in her form. And it's weird because you're saying her form, but it is Finn at the same time.
Right.
So it's that's what probably makes the most sense. It's definitely not real. It is what Finn is manifesting and seeing in his own self. So he is seeing himself. And that's why he finds peace with it. Yeah.
I've just always thought it was a ghost, right? We've always referred to her as a ghost. And this is the first episode where I would say, no, not a ghost at all. This is just all inside of Finn that's happening, and not necessarily fake, but the past life tapping into Finn's consciousness and helping him, you know, settle this this wrongdoing.
Yeah,
and get rid of it from the vault.
It's a good segue into be like the episode's called The Vault because Finn talks about that's where I put all my stuff that I can't handle. And that's, that's freaking,
you know that you're doing it.
That's deep. That's one of the funniest lines is Jake's like, and you know you're doing it. Like, what the heck, man?
Okay.
But that's such an interesting concept. I don't even know if interesting is the right word because we all do that. We have past things that we push down and we lock away. We're like, I don't want to tap into that. I don't want to deal with that. And I mean, so much in the rest of this show is dealing with things you don't want to deal with, dealing with people, with, and mostly in Finn's world, a lot of it is revolved around family, his mom and his dad, and solving that kind of thing. And it's the first instance where something that Finn has locked away is eating at him, and it's eating at him until he can find a solution, and it's starting to cause like physical harm to him in the treehouse because he's destroying the treehouse.
Yeah, 5 times in the past month too.
Yeah,
like, not just like once, not twice. Jake is fed up with Finn doing this crap too.
Yeah. So here's a question though: is this a Jake mistake or not? That Jake brings up BMOS, downloaded the regression simulator, and basically performs non-consensual hypnotherapy, past life regression on Finn. Is that a mistake? It works out in the end, but is non-consensual hypnotizing of people. Right. Is that kind of a little bit of a gray area?
It's probably a no-go. It's definitely a gray area that we have no authority to truly say what is right, what is wrong in the situation.
Like one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, Ned, I don't remember recording these 4 episodes of this podcast. And I'd be like, yeah, I hypnotized you and got into all of your deepest, darkest secrets that you've been regressing or repressing.
What's going to happen is we'll finish this podcast one day, or at least the Adventure Time part of this podcast, and then you'll go, oh man, that was great. Can't believe we just did all that. And then I'll go, what are you talking about? We don't have an Adventure Time podcast. Like, this is all just me being hypnotized into doing what you wanted me to do so bad for 4 effing years. Watch Adventure Time.
Exactly. That's my goal, and that's what's happening, people. Is I'm definitely hypnotizing Russell non-consensually.
Right. So. No, but I do think that is a great moral question to ask, and it worked. It worked. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird friend thing to be like, how far can I push a friend or a family member or whatever into fixing a situation that I think I know the answers to, or I know the possible path of answers to. And again, I think Jake gets lucky that this didn't way mess up Finn worse.
Yes.
It's surprisingly as well, because now Finn kind of confirms that if he had any doubts about the dead worlds or reincarnation or both, or didn't know about any of it, that he didn't wake up out of that regression and go, holy crap, like, what is my life? I'm not myself. I have lived 1,000 lives. Like, that could be that. I mean, that would be the normal reaction to that would be
as you go, I'm the chosen one. I'm gonna, like, I'm destined for greatness. Surely that's the case. Because
I'll say, because for the fans out there, that's huge with his comet. The him being a comet is like a really hard to grasp concept that they build, but it's very, very important.
And it's something. Well, back to what you were just saying. Sorry, because I obviously don't know.
Yeah, no, I was wanting to put that out for the fans to be like, I did think about that.
That's good.
We're not talking about it for a reason. So
right, but again, I'm just like, how does Shoko know that she is also being reincarnated? Did she have a better process of tapping into the vault or something? And what else is in Finn's vault? What is within there, the parenting thing and all? I mean, that we haven't seen yet, or maybe he has access to it now. He knows how they get there. And he can sift through it to find what is missing, or I don't know.
Probably a little bit of both, like a little bit of stuff that if there isn't going to be a resolution to not tap into, like again, that would be just sitting on something and worrying about it all the time, which is not what anybody wants to do. But when the opportunities do arise later, Finn starts tapping into that, and not in this kind of same way, not in through any like hypnotistic way. But starts to open up some more of the vault. And that's just like, I think that's just growing up a little bit, I think, is to like learn to face, what do you call it? Harsh realities with optimism. And Finn is our most optimistic character in the show. So He gets better at it, and this is just kind of one of the first instances of that. And he's probably, repressing a lot of feelings with what just happened with Flame Princess, repressing a lot of feelings with what had happened with Princess Bubblegum. Some of that's growth, some of that could be repression. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea, man. But certainly, my thought with what Finn was going through at the beginning of this episode reminded me a lot of sleep paralysis demons, or the concept of sleep paralysis demons, which I knock on wood, have never experienced myself, but it sounds freaking awful. Except for he is obviously sleepwalking and then seeing Shoko appear in Shoko's terrifying form. But it did make me think, man, I should bring back a favorite, nobody's favorite reoccurring segment. Let's look this up on Urban Dictionary. And so I looked up sleep paralysis demon on Urban Dictionary just because I had to. So, Ned, what do you think Urban Dictionary has to say about sleep paralysis demons?
I don't know. I have a bad feeling it's going to go weirdly sexual, but
no,
I don't know if I'm in. Okay.
Unfortunately, it doesn't. It does say that a sleep paralysis demon is a crazy ass bitch that likes to watch me sleep. And used in a sentence, sleep paralysis demon is my sleep paralysis demon is Garfield, which is just awful. It's absolutely awful. Worse than Shoko?
Maybe.
I'm not
you ever seen Garfield eat up lasagna and how terrifying that can be? And that if you look like lasagna,
and don't mess with him on Mondays because don't mess
with him on Mondays.
Mondays.
Oh man, but again, we may not hit our like super super long episode, but we hit. I mean, so many good talking points that I wanted to hit around the importance of this episode, the lore that, again, what was it? I think it was 2 episodes ago with Earth and Water. You were just like all about it. And you're like, I'm just learning all this about the Candy Kingdom and the Fire People. And with Too Old, with like Lemon Grab and all that stuff too. We're just in this great little back in time sandwich was last week too. And it was still a great episode, but really chill. We didn't have to build a lot of lore. And that's, I think, the beauty of Adventure Time is we're not having to do too much deep adventure storytelling all the time. But when it slaps it on you, it's just a great episode and you're really, really like sucked into it.
100%. I mean, I think where we should go right now is probably talking a little bit about what is the Candy Kingdom back in Shoko's time, because that was something that I personally was like, this is awesome. Like, I don't even need the lore. I just like to see, it is kind of canon material, right? Like what is happening at the beginning of the Candy Kingdom.
Yeah, you got green bananas that aren't ripened yet.
Yes. They're totally unripe, the banana guards that still are serving the same purpose, but probably equally as inept at their job as they are in modern times. But then you have this giant unfrosted cake that is the Candy Kingdom being built. And you see the layers of cake and the frosting slowly being covered on top of it. I mean, you get to see baby Peppermint Butler just
runner-up lovely form. By the way, he was definitely runner-up lovely.
Yeah, pre-evil, pre-being
pre-demonized, which again, the Distant Lands episode, there is a whole episode around Pep Butt going to wizard school and learning how to summon the dark arts, essentially.
Oh my gosh. And then the last one is the Gumball Guardians are learning how and what it means to be a guardian, where they're just, one, screaming, and 2, walking around the Candy Kingdom being like, are you in danger? Like, can I help you? And unfortunately, their quit to action nature at that point in their lives is, I will say, in Finn's time, they almost do nothing all the time.
They kind of just they're not very helpful.
Right. But back then, they're like, oh, you're in danger. I knew it. Real quick, let me slap this thing into the acid river.
They obviously they defend it for so many hundreds of years. They get a little bit passive.
Right. Now super bubbles.
Yeah. Ultimate powerful things. She does have a secondary pre-Gumball Guardians, different kinds of Gumball Guardians. Spoiler drop, his name is Rattleballs. That's all I'll tell you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we also get within the scenes of the Candy Kingdom my sexy character for this episode.
Sexy character. I don't think I have our sexy character one.
Oh, give me some sugar, baby. No, I want to have your baby. That's what it is.
I don't have babies on the soundboard. I can.
Oh, dude, we need that. Freaking out that.
Got.
Anyways, my sexy character. I saw you looking for it, so I was waiting. Momo is my sexy character for this episode. He's one of the Bath Boy Gang members. Just in a bath towel in public, obviously, like the
shampoo
most obvious non-Candy Kingdom citizen of all time, somehow creeping around the Candy Kingdom. Also, got to be 6 foot, right?
Like, huge
for
guy.
Sure, 6 foot. So gets my sexy character for the episode. But that was a great interaction as well. Shoko, oh yeah. Like we'll work together on this one, and then just whoops his butt, kicks him out of the Candy Kingdom.
Oh, yeah. Well,
which helps her to bond with Princess Bubblegum, which is great. And that kind of brings their friendship forward more.
On your observation of the Candy Kingdom and it being like, this is just cool. Let's see it like put in this time period, how it's being developed. It's like deconstructed. I wanted to see if you had noticed at the very end of the episode when Shoko pulls herself under the tree, that in the backgrounds, we see the mountains where the Ice Kingdom is supposed to be, and they are not covered in snow and ice at all, which I thought was very shocking. And I don't think it's something that we necessarily get an explanation for, but we did see in Simon and Marcy is when he kind of starts making a fuller transition to the Ice King, and he's almost there. That was when Bubblegum was not even formed yet. Right. So this has to be what I would say probably 100 or between 100 and 200 years after Simon and Marcy episode. But that means that Simon is somehow laying dormant somewhere.
Or just living. I mean, how big is the Candy Kingdom? Maybe he's trying to figure out, he hasn't settled down. He's still out there flirting with the ladies and
but you could I mean, you can kind of see it with a character coming later called Patience St. Pym, that if Simon was scared of himself and scared of hurting other people and hurting Marceline, like, did he try to like bury himself somewhere? Did he try to like be like, I'm going to try to like hide myself away for as long as I can so I won't like be dangerous to anybody? Because you would think it would just be like, maybe he was just chilling there for all those years. Maybe he was just being his normal Ice King, but obviously he's not present at this point in time, which I just think is crazy bizarre. Like, when did he go full Ice King? When did he become a nuisance to the Candy Kingdom and other princesses and things like that too?
It does, but it's
obviously not here,
right? They definitely would not. There was too much going on for them to dive into an Ice King plotline as well in this episode. But they very easily could have shown the Ice King's mountain or his where he lives.
Yeah,
in the background.
At this point in the show, they're too intentional about that stuff. Yeah, they're too intentional to be like, we're not putting what is the candy or the Ice Kingdom covered in ice. That's absolutely 100% intentional. But they don't. I don't think they ever get into a deeper explanation again of too much of like, we don't get 1,000 years worth of history, obviously. So.
Right. No, I loved that. I love that. Again, they are being intentional with things like that, and we got to see the Candy Kingdom in its infant state, and everything kind of acts as a child or in an immature way, except for Princess Bubblegum, who is a morally good character this episode. She wants to protect her people. She seems to have like them in the back of her mind with every decision. She treats them like they're her children, except for Mr. Cream Puff, who is her boyfriend, which she does clarify in this episode. So it feels almost like we get a better Princess Bubblegum, like a less cynical, less manipulative Princess Bubblegum in this episode. And she's used, the reason I kind of say this is because she's used as an example of how good someone could be for Shoko. Because Shoko had nothing but terrible examples and people that were trying to steal or whatever, that she was fighting for survival for her entire life. Her parents being the main ones. Shoko's parents got to be some of the worst parents in this show that we've seen. Of course, we've talked about them leaving her at the dojo. Have we discussed how they traded her arm for a computer. Like,
yeah.
Insane. I mean, what is it? Simple possessions aren't the most important things in life. All you really need is a good computer, is the quote that she has from her parents. Didn't think anything of it until Princess Bubblegum was just like, that's insane.
That's terrible advice.
They shouldn't have done that. Yeah, that's terrible. And I think it's kind of how they bonded, and you get to see them form a friendship over this episode. And Princess Bubblegum and Shoko get close enough that it kills Shoko to go in and betray her and to go and steal the amulet from her. And she really does like contemplate whether she's going to do it or not. But ultimately, her entire life has been around survival. She's got to do it. She's got to do what she has to do to keep living, to keep moving forward. And it meant betraying Princess Bubblegum. But yeah, Shoko wins for worst parents of all of Adventure Time for me.
So far. So I think you'll have some opinions about some characters coming up pretty soon here.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, man. Did you have any overarching lessons from this episode?
Yeah, I've got two great lessons. One of them I just used. I think the ultimate lesson from this episode is simple possessions aren't the most important things in life. All you really need is a good computer. And I'm learning that right now as we're trying to figure out the visual aspect of this podcast, that maybe my old MacBook isn't a good enough computer anymore. Somebody's arm's
coming off. Look out, Allie.
Yeah.
Ruffle's coming for your arm right now.
Whoa now. No, I would never do that, please. Allie's wonderful. But my own arm, maybe.
Possibly.
I mean, I could be like my heroes, like Luke Skywalker, But anyways,
exactly. Like Finn, like Shoko.
Like Shoko. My other lesson is clear out your vault. Tap into it, clear it out. Every once in a while, some things might need to stay in there, but for the most part,
yeah. Well, one of my main lessons. My non-main lesson is non-consensual hypnotherapy is not cool.
That's a great lesson.
The lesson that's pretty much the same as yours in a different format is a lot of peace can be found in resolving things from your early life. That repression is a way to keep things bottled up, and typically, more often than not, it's stirring up something that's going to make you wreck your house, that's going to terrorize your relationships and things like that. So I don't know about past lives, but definitely stuff from early life. So figure out a way to tap in, a healthy way to tap into your vault. And work on that too. And again, like we won't get into that, but I'm sure we've talked about ego deaths, and I think a lot of the tapping into your vault comes in to play with the themes of past life regression, of ego death, like die to your own ego, because that's pretty much what's causing your problems.
That's great, dude. This is a freaking great episode. I gotta say, this is going to be my top for this season.
I don't know. We got some great ones coming up, but as I had to go back through so much of what we did. We have to talk about season 5. We still have to talk about like Finn the Human and Jake the Dog in Farm World. The great episodes.
But right now, this is a 4.5 Finn's past life reincarnations with missing arms out of 5 past lives of Finn.
Missing arm reincarnation.
Missing arms, whatever, yeah. So 4.5
4.5 astral butterflies out of 5 astral butterflies.
I like that, but I kind of wanted to throw in the missing arm thing.
Yeah. That's why I wish the butterfly had like a missing wing. I thought that would have been like kind of cool, like a one-winged butterfly. I don't know.
Would have been
but man, do you have any recommendations for us this week?
I do. I have a rec and I have a traveler's log this week, which would be really great.
Let's do our recs and then get into the log.
Yeah, my rec is kind of lame. Or at least that's how I feel about it. It's Bridgerton. I'm watching through.
Okay, yeah, kind of lame, but I've heard it's great.
It's very fascinating. It's very much kind of Love Island-y, which y'all know that I love a good trash television, Love Island, whatever, Two Out the Handle type TV show. So it's that, but it's more not even political. It should be political, but it's just about like young, attractive teens who will they marry in like 1700s Britain, but like a make-believe version of it. It's very good. It's very appealing. It's almost Game of Thrones-like, but without the death. And without the dragons so far. There might be dragons, but I just haven't gotten that far into it
And
yet.
Hey, the newest season actually features a handful of Soundstripe songs, so that's also pretty cool.
Oh, there you go. That's plugging the company.
I just thought that's the only reason I even know the show at all. So
That's awesome, dude. But yeah, no, it's very fascinating. The first season has a lot. About halfway through, there's a lot of sex, but otherwise,
yeah,
it's good. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's why Russell
it's
likes
like
the
Game
show.
of Thrones, dog.
My rec is actually, I would say it's a recommendation because of this episode specifically. But we watched it not too long ago. It's a movie called Infinite from 2021. Mark Wahlberg's the star. I think it slipped under the radar. I think with all the COVID movie releases and stuff like that, that everything kind of just faded off in the distance. But it's interesting. It's about people in the world that are the infinites or the not infinites. And the infinites are people that do basically reincarnate as another person. And that when you reincarnate and if you kind of tap into your past life, you remember every skill, every like fighting skill, everything you've ever learned. And that there's like two different sects of the infinites. There's ones that like pretty much want to figure out how to end the cycle. And they're like, this is a terrible God that would make us be immortal. And so they want to like basically figure out a way to kill every single person in the world versus the infinites that want to use it to like protect the world and create like a, how to better the world with technologies and things like that.
Well,
so very cool concept. Some bad acting, some ways of kind of tying things together where it's not an amazing movie, but I thought it was a really good, just like very recent take on the whole like reincarnation idea of things. So if you liked this episode, go watch that movie.
Oh, right on, man. Well, let's get into the Traveler's Log we have for this episode. It's been quite a while since we've done one, so I wanted to do one and a little bit of a beefy one just because it has been so long, but we'll do it quickly. This comes from DJ Bread Slice, and it's kind of discussing, well, web weirdos specifically, but kind of discussing Jake's stretchiness. So DJ Bread Slice says, in Web Weirdos podcast episode, you have a kind of Jake mistake that Jake wouldn't stretch new arms to cut himself out of the web. I combine this with the science that matter cannot be created or destroyed. Although the Adventure Time universe is heavily magical, there are times that magic is mixed with science. Maybe part of the reason Jake couldn't stretch was because he was being pulled by the webs. We know that he can't stretch infinitely and that he has squishy bones. Jake could be stretching by thinning other parts of his body. He even has control over his organs and blood by stretching his liver in Jake versus Meow and moving his blood and likely his heart to his thumb to avoid losing it to Marceline and Evicted. The only problems are that we see him grow and shrink to extreme proportions. But remember that Jake has a lot of given the limit, which is the episode. It takes a long while before he's stretched too thin to keep going. So he may have a lot of mass, but the shrinking then becomes difficult to explain. But to get back to the beginning, sorry, this is a long one. Jake may have landed in an awkward way where he couldn't compact or expand another part of his body easily. Russell's question remains, how strong are these webs?
Yeah, so, it says, and DJ Bro Slice says, P.S. spider webs actually are really strong in real life. So a bigger spider may have webs like a thick rope. P.S. or PPS, thank you for reading. Sorry it was so long. I'm so close to catching up on the current episodes, which is also cool that you brought back up Web Weirdos because it's been a while since that one.
Well, I couldn't believe how many references were in this one Traveler's Log. We're talking about Jake and Meow. We're talking about Evicted. We're talking about,
it's great. So
it's really good.
It's great for the lore building again, because you try to pick up on consistencies and, what we've had thoughts about, like, can Jake, does he get stretchy powers? He get too tired to stretch when that's why he can eat so much ice cream and before the ice cream marathon, and you can pull things from different episodes. That's pretty much why we have the Jake mistake segment, is because we don't ever know the extent of his powers, except for obviously they're not unlimited. But
so maybe
it's cool that somebody else can break down and be like, we saw this and we saw this. And if he's mass, how does he get smaller?
So what do you think? Do you think we were onto something with our Jake mistake, or do you think, because he clearly was stuck in that web? I think always, in most case scenarios with Adventure Time, especially in the earlier seasons, Jake is always underplaying his powers in order for Finn to grow. That's what it feels like in my mind. Because there's no way, even if he landed awkwardly in a very strong web, like we've seen him manipulate his body in such insane proportions and ways in the past that he could not have gotten out of that web if he truly needed to.
Exactly. And that's where I was like, I could see the argument here why he couldn't grow or shrink if the webs were truly like pulling on it to where he couldn't stretch. But we've seen him grow like extra limbs. And I was like, he could have grown extra limbs. He could have stretched his eyeballs out to.
That's what I'm saying.
And again, but I think what Bread Slice is saying here is that is it so tight that he couldn't stretch any part of his body? I don't know. We've also just seen Jake decide to be lazy because he's kind of just like, I want to see what happens. He's a little bit more, I think Jake's a quiet existential, that he sits back a little too often to just see what happens.
Just seems like sometimes he just doesn't care. He's like, I don't know. At the end of the day, we'll get out of this as long as we don't die, like whatever. If it really came down to it, he would do something. But no, I think that's a fun theory. And I think bringing in, so many episodes. Also, The Limit was another one that you mentioned in this, theoretically speaking, or well, not theoretically speaking, Traveler's Log. I think it makes it a really good thought. I would love to hear what other people's opinions are. You can always reach out to us at nea.travelerslog@gmail.com. If y'all want to, further the discussion and hop into our Discord, we have that available for $1 and up. Patreon subscribers at patreon.com/neverendingadventure-podcast. We also have Instagram, Never Ending Adventure Podcast, which I'm back on it, back to being active on Instagram and sort of Twitter, I guess, NEA_podcast at Twitter. But yeah, come join the conversation, and we'll get another Traveler's Log in real soon. Y'all, thank you. This awesome episode. I can't wait to see what comes next. I think we've reached peak season 5. I can't imagine it's going to get any better, but we'll see.
It always gets better. It always gets better.
All right. Bye, y'all. Party forever.
I love you guys.